they're not here yet. So sometimes we think about the part of our attentions on things that just happened in the last presentation, or something that's going back home. Sometimes parts of us are in the future. Sometimes parts of us are just from other persons. So I'd like to just invite you to come back to our briefing and do a very short exercise on first degree to bring the presence to the body. So it means that our soul is in the same place as our body is. So you can do it just paying attention on your breath, the chest and the belly that expands and contracts. And you can just embody and feel your feet on the ground. You can feel the muscles, you can feel every cell. You can feel the blood just running as rivers on the feet. You can be in your legs and just feel the material of the legs, just feel the muscles, just feel the density. That's what makes us here and now. You can feel your spine, your chest, your belly. You can be in your arms, in your hands, in your neck, in your head, in your eyes. And this way you can sense physically, I'm just here right now. Even noises are around us, and part of us can just listen to noises that are outside. That will only remind us that there is a place here that can be in silence, and that the more our attention tries to go somewhere else, the more we remember that we are sensing, that we are right here and right now. That's actually how the word is. Noise outside and a practice to come back home, to come back in our bodies. As we are sensing our bodies, you can go to include a second degree of presence, which means paying attention also without letting the body out, not an exchange of attention, but an inclusion of attention. We can include your heart. You can pay attention in the breath, in the chest, and you can just welcome the feelings that could be felt in this room, in this place, right now. The word of the heart is the word of the waters. And as our heart is really open to be affected by the environment without fake protections, we're just vulnerable to be affected, we can start to feel whatever presents itself in this room. We can bring to our hearts a feeling that we have as we are in front of someone we love very much. I usually do it with my children. I've got 2 boys. I just received a picture from one of them going to his first soccer match, and that just touches my heart. I don't know for you what it is, but I'm sure you can bring something or someone to your heart. Just gently open it. Once you are sensing your body, you are here right now, you are open to be affected by the feelings in the environment, then we can go to a third degree of presence. And that means go into the mind and access a quiet mind. For me, It is like to be in a very high mountain, in those places that you just can see like 180 degrees, and you can feel the wind fresh. And suddenly, the internal dialogues just starts to quiet down. And you have the sense that at the same time, you avoid in the mind, and in the same time, you just understand everything. As we can bring this presence to the three centers of intelligence, we're now able to be here and stay with these three centers here, because our learning, our life, and also the Enneagram is just about our relationship with these three centers of energy. And this is going to be very fundamental in our work here. This is one of the main principles and bases that we need to master the attention and the level of consciousness on the different centers that we have. And this way, I invite you to be here and be just very curious to what we're going to experience here. If you want, you may open your eyes and at the same time maintain this degree of presence. And I hope and I believe whatever we get here is what we were meant to get here, and this is always wonderful. And doesn't matter your belief system, doesn't matter if what comes is understandable or not. What matters is that when we put ourselves in a place of curiosity, in a place of open heart, whatever happens, we can learn from that, and we can raise our consciousness from that. Well, welcome to our presentation or experience or work. I do not know exactly how this thing will unfold in this very short period of time, but let's ourselves be channels for whatever comes and whatever happens here. You are very welcome. Just a little bit about the background that brings us here. My name is Nikolai. I'm Brazilian. And I think it's important to tell just shortly what brings us here, so you can have an idea of the background that brings this kind of work. I would say was, because it's how I sense. I was an engineer. I graduated with one of the best schools in Brazil. And for a long time, I had the very, very scientific and rational mind. At the same time, I was, since very young, attracted to spirituality, attracted to poetry and things that I could not really understand. And for many times, this duality should play a very important role in my life. I started work with human development 15 years ago, and mostly at the beginning, which happens now in companies, in corporations. I have worked with more than 10,000 leaders, especially in big organizations and leadership academies. That's one of the things. And 10 years ago, I started teaching also on programs on NLP, Ericksonian hypnosis, coaching, and that was the beginning of everything that started to open this channel and this work. Things were fine until 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when I started to have these visions. I started to have this very strong intuitions on how to work, even with the Enneagram. I've been working with the Enneagram for 13, 14 years, And the very first 5, 6, 7 years was more on a rational and cognitive understanding. And with time, these things started to become very different. And I started to integrate what I was learning from bioenergetics, what I was learning from body therapy, what I was learning from active meditation and family constellation, and a lot of work on fields that would bring us, and shamanism, which in the last 5 to 6 years I was involved in a lot of shamanic work and conducting this work. So 5 years ago I started to become a polarity again. I was going home and asking myself, am I the business consultant that are really worried about giving the results and doing the right thing and doing the diagnosis and all of this? Or am I this kind of I don't know what that conducts the retreats, because I conduct a lot of retreats, and I just don't even remember what is there. There is no process, but things just come and things happen as they would have. I thank a lot to the Ericksonian Hypnosis, which I became a teacher 10 years ago. It taught me how to be in the field, to be a channel for the field, without interfering too much on doubting what's coming, without interfering too much on losing my center in the body, in the heart. Together with this, a lot of work on therapy, both just basic therapy, which means Freud and mother and father things that we all have, and also a lot of meditation for the last 10 years, at least 1 hour a day more, and a lot of Eckhart Tolle happening. And this all came to me, and I was asking myself again, who am I? And 4 years ago, I went to this place inside myself to try to see my identity, and then a different level came. And what came was that my work had to do with raising consciousness on a planetary understanding. And once you're working on healing, once you're working on consciousness, once you're working on education, these things can express themselves in many different forms. Depends on your talents, depends on what you learn. And from that time it became easier. So no matter if I go into an organization that I can do a lot of work, even to the board of big companies, it always comes through a background and a force that what we are healing here, what we are healing in terms of raising consciousness of this culture, because even the companies are sick, and the teams are sick, and whatever the work you do from an individual to a whole country, we are working on raising consciousness. We are working on remembering that behind whatever we do, there's something else that is giant, that is big, and it's running us. If we don't stay in its way. Some people call it God, some people call it universal force, some people call it silence. Whatever the name you give, I always like to remember every word, no matter if it's shamanic work or the corporate work, that what is behind this purpose, this life, this form, is always serving something bigger. It's always serving something that really is a calling for all of us. That's some pictures of some of the retreats we've been conducting for these years. It's a great journey. Just some background also. I have also wrote 4 books. One of them is already translated into English, which is Synergon for Leaders. The second one, The Angel and the Leader, will be available in English very soon. And it's a story about a leader, a CEO of a company that once he got home and find his wife with brain tumor, he has to go inside himself and start to pray. That's the only thing that lasted to him. And suddenly he's visited by an angel that starts to take him in astral projection and giving him a lot of information on how to change himself. I was very afraid when I released this book in Brazil 2 years ago if I would lose my clients, my corporate clients. But as these things are, just the opposite always happens. You start to attract the ones that are in the same pathway, in the same vibration from you. So, and there are 2 more books coming until the end of the year. We just released an app also, which is available for free. It's called Enneagram for Leaders. And that's some of the just the background. Well, what many of us find out, and I was just amazed to be this morning watching Rania and Beatrice. Rania has been a friend for 15 years. We worked a lot together in Brazil. Is that we got to remember and always be connected that the Enneagram is a very, very ancient knowledge. It is not just a knowledge, it is an organization of energies and archetypal energies, and it's a combination, according to Gurdjieff, and also to the Sufi Enneagram, of the 3 main laws of the universe, the law of 1, the law of 3, and the law of 7. I will not go into the laws, but that's where everything comes from. I would like also to thank my other teacher, Russ Hudson. And Russ always remembers us about the Egyptian origin of the Enneagram, and the desert fathers and everything that comes. So once we understand where it comes from, if it's the Gurdjieff Enneagram, or even where the passions come, where the types come, and we go back to the Harmakia, the 9 sins, which means in the past, in the beginning of the Christian tradition, which meant the 9 ways that we would lose our target. So the passions would never be like something that, a sin would never be something that you're gonna hit yourself for that, but it was a way of studying what is taking me out from the way to God, to the way to the presence. When my heart beats or has anger, or is in anger mode, what I feel is a kind of suffering. So there's a specific quality in the heart that is just taking me away from the path to serenity, to non-judgment in the mind. So the 9 passions would become the 9 different sufferings in the heart. From my main type, for example, I would call main because I just believe today that there are learnings that we have to do in our type, which means also the instincts and wings. And there are also learnings that we have to have in all other 8 frequencies, because we do have to work some time on that. Of course, if I turn my eyes to that and I miss, which is the main path, that's an issue. But it gets that sometime we are confronted to find these other dynamics in us too. And once we have our eyes and heart open, these things can be very useful, because everything relates to a part of us that has to be healed, has to be raised in consciousness, and all the 9 passions can help us. My main type, which is 7, gluttony, which is a suffering, a special suffering of my heart, is a type 7. It's a heart that's starving. So you can imagine the anxiety of a heart that's starving. Starving for what? Starving for feeling this very moment. starving from an emptiness that comes because you are not here in the heart in this right moment. Of course, when we describe gluttony as being all these actions and going into all parties at the same time, we're not describing the passion, we're describing what our body does in order to blind the passion. But the passion is what is behind it. So this everything remembers us that the Enneagram is a multidimensional system that represents many things at the same time, that it can be applied as in the very shallow, and here shallow doesn't mean something bad, just means some shallow work as to describe tendencies of behaviors which will never be 100% true, can be changed. But it's even more beautiful that we know that under the surface there are things that cause us this. And this comes to the passions, to the instincts, and even behind that it comes to an energy level. An energy level that we cannot sometimes nominate, we can just experience. And yes, you can use the mandala and the carpet to access these energies in many different ways. In one of our retreats, 7-day retreat, we focus a lot in how to produce the arrow movements in order for you to integrate the three forces that you need. So, in order to integrate also the three centers of intelligence. That's an amazing work that can happen on you. We can also use the carpet in terms of on which spiritual station we are. So if you are in point 1, just starting the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell would say, and then we are in contact with our instincts, which drives most of humanity. Most of humanity places its attention on sexual issues, on how to preserve themselves from fear, and also how politics and social work. This is most parts of our soul as humanity acts. Or in the second stage, that would be our passions, because we don't feel our passions most of the time. We act our passions. So I don't feel the suffering of gluttony because it's a lot of pain. What I do is I act it, because in this way I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to deal with this one. We can use it to integrate the law 3, points 3, 6, or 9. We can use it to provoke shocks on the point 3 and point 6. This is a horizontal shock. This is a higher force shock according to the Burdick Enneagram. And all of these things come together as we started to use this work. And it really is a beautiful thing to do and to learn. Some years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we were doing this work for more than 10 years, and the results were just fine. And I asked myself, are we able to teach other teachers, other Enneagram teachers, on how to control this work on the mandala? And that was a question that I made to myself. And once I combined knowledge that came from bioenergetics, from body posture, from systemic NLP, and a lot of other things, yes, we tried. And I am in the 4th year of this. I do once a year this group that teaches other teachers to do it, and the results are just great because I can see my students just conducting beautiful work. And so the idea of today is not just working on the carpet, on the mandala, but is to talk about some of the principles that you need as teachers, as therapists, as coach, in order to work on the mandalas, in order to work with the intuition that comes in order to use it the best way possible. Of course, the time we have here is very short, and just like to be available for you all. I'm going to be here in the hotel until Monday. If anyone wants to talk about it, please. But it's always a pity that the time is very slow. Well, one of the things that I learned that are very important is that the arrows themselves, they have their own energy. So being and walking them, I have walked on this line so many times and I could experience this energy that sometimes that I believe that we also have to understand what kinds of energy are in the specific parts of the mandala, and this is one very good and very important part of the learning. I'll be back right now here, but just bringing here, the arrows can mean many things. That depends on the level of consciousness who access that. For example, if I access the mandala in a very low level of consciousness, what I see in this line 1-4, for example, is a lot of self-criticism, a lot of self-punishment, and this happens in the line. Of course, if I access in a different level of consciousness, it changes and goes to a different quality. In a normal level of consciousness, this line 8-5 is also a place where you find a lot of assertivity, you find an energy that just objective. So sometimes I give names to the lines, but these are just something that can change. In this line, you can experience a lot of emotions. Of course, when we are in the 4, the emotions come into my heart in a very deep place. And when I walk to this line, the emotions just go outside. And it changes. But it's mainly a line that works in the heart. It's not a change too much in the level, in the center of intelligence. When I walk to this line, it's very different. Usually I am in the heart, in a lower consciousness. My heart is like this. In a higher consciousness, I have integrated there, so I'm more balanced. But anyway, in this line, we experience a change in the world. Here I'm in the water, in the heart. And then I became in the middle of the line to access the earth, which is a very different world. So usually this line comes. This line comes in a different place and we access a different quality here. And there is an integration that usually the two. So I have to shift my energy to my belly and to my feet. And if I'm conducting someone on these exercises, depending on the objective I have, I, as a conductor, I have to be able to change where my attention is in terms of energy. Because if I want to access the heart, but my mind is working too much, by resonation, what I'm going to do is to maintain the other person on the mind frequency. So the very first principle that I have to do is I have to practice how to be and recognize the different qualities on the 3 different centers. And that brings us to the triangle. And the first exercise that we're going to do together. What I'm going to invite you to do in a while is, you can be in your place, the place you are, but if in a while we can stand up, I'm going to go into the triangle. and conduct us on shifting the energy from the different points of the triangle. So you just resonate on it. In the first point, you put all of your attention on your belly and bring you to the earth at the sound of music, and you try to use your body as a scan on how you're feeling. As I move and I change the music, you just pay very attention and change your energy from the belly to the heart, and we're going to soften it and try to feel what happens to the field of the room. That is very important. You have to use your body as a scan to feel the difference in quality in what happens in the room, because it changes a lot. And then we're going to move to the air, to the head, and let's try to feel what happens in the field and within you. Okay? Can we do that? Okay, so please just stand. If you want to find a different place, that's fine. Whatever is good for you. Putting your attention on your belly, on your feet, and let's move. Let's bring a lot of earth and connect to the point 9 and the 8 and the 1 and everything that is very strong here. Attention goes to your feet, your legs, and you start to feel it very strong, the muscles, images of the earth, volcano, and you bring your attention to the earth. Your breath is on the belly, very low, and just feel how the space feels. You can feel 1 meter very intuitive. You can feel that the presence of this room change. Different qualities, beings, and energies. Sometimes this is the energy that likes us or our clients in specific attention. Sometimes it's where we sometimes it's where we find redemption. Just notice very specifically what changes in your spirit, in your body posture, in the way you sense and you can join me in the line that goes from the world of waters to the high mountains. And ready to go into the domain of the clear mind. Your vision can see from very high. And you go into sight. Like an eagle flying through the air.
Fly like an eagle, fly so
You
high.
can just notice what changes in the field of the room.
Wings of your light.
What different kinds of images
Fly
comes to
like
your
an
mind?
eagle,
What kind of different senses come to your body?
circling the universe.
Sensing the difference.
Wings of your light. Hey, wish you die.
Is this the
Wish you
access that
die.
is normal to you or is it very difficult?
Hey, wish you die.
Do you access this place
Wish you
quietly?
die.
Or you access it as
Hey, wish you die.
very chaotic air?
Wish you die. Hey, wish you die. Wish you die. Fly like a
So the very first principle on starting, very basic work on starting to feel the mandala is to be aware of your body, is to work on grounding and centering, and then differentiate very specifically the differences on these three worlds, on these three centers, and being able to shift whenever is necessary to conduct whatever energy or access it is lacking for your group or someone that's going to work from you. Of course, this energies can be accessed in a very different point. Sometimes I'm working with the 4s or 2 or 3s or anyone that's access deep and strong emotions. And what we find here is different from the open heart. What we find here, if you are working a 5, a 6, or a 7, or any one of us that has the mind chaotic, which is the mind center just distorted, because a good mind center has no chaos in it. What the point 6 remembers as the center of the mind is when we are clear of the mind, what happens is that we connect to an inner direction that comes from higher vision, as our legs get strong and not fearful when we lose this connection. That's the high of the mind side, and that's the very low. As I close this channel, what happens is fear, and then my legs will just close, dark and cold. That's what happens here. And at the same time here, I can access this energy in a very chaotic way, and that will burst into anger, and in different ways, dissociation of anger, or explosion, or contraction, doesn't matter, it's all the same thing, just reactions. But also when you master this in the specific place, this point, remember us that our spiritual inner journey is in the body, right here and right now. We're not dissociating to have peace. We are changing this very world right here and assuming our powers. But what happens is that we serve the higher qualities in the heart and in the mind. The same thing after is to learn what happens in these different lives. And for this, the Enneagram theory is very good. Because sometimes, for example, what happens here, if I'm working with a 4, for example, sometimes what happens here is accessing inner child and going back to the past and going to my very critic and with sense of something is wrong with me that the child would have in the 4. But sometimes this can be accessed in a very different way and accessed as an impulse point, and then I come to the roots, I come to my body, I integrate that before I go to my heart back. And this movement to the force is very beautiful, because in the south of the mandala, what happens is that you lose contact to the earth. If you watch the energy of someone from this point, you see a head or a heart, but you don't feel the legs. So these energies are not connected randomly. You have to go to the earth first. And for the 4, it is more a tree quality. I always call a sequoia that you have to access. And then come back to sustain this heart that will do like this. But now you're here. And then you can move from your emotions into a place where you serve others, or you're here in an integration. That's one of the possibilities, which of course is a different possibility. If you are feeling like abandoned, then you go to stress level, and then you tune your mistress, and suddenly you're trying to please everyone. Stress movement. This is a different access, because these lines have many stores. So it depends on the work you are doing. Sometimes I show the person what is going on. I show, look, understand your energy, how you are next to stress. Can you just watch this? Are you aware? Because we're not going to do this again. So let's use your body to make you aware of it. And many other combinations that we can access. I felt that I talked too much, and what I'm going to do with the time we have, if you're okay with this, is that I'm going to invite one or two people that would like to experience one of the movements, and then explain that and put it in perspective, and of course be available for you. Just some water. Just going to the end, when we do shamanic work, we access the power animals, so we access the underworld too. And what we see in this time, this is a very archetypical. The hummingbird in the shamanic work is the healing by love. So it's a very soft healing that usually appears here. The white buffalo is always another archetype from a very strong and powerful word. And these are some of the, when we access these points, the 9 points, at a very high frequency, what we do in the retreats, these are some images that usually come. The one is something very beautiful. We access the angelic world. It's a very beautiful place to be, which is of course very different from the place of judging. They are around sacredness, but depends on the distortion or not. This is something that we go and access, and we take a day on each one of these and feel the fields that come of these animals and all of this. But let's come here. Okay. Does anyone would like to come here and work? Okay. I think it's maybe difficult for me to hold this. It's okay if you want to get closer, it's fine, but I will just drop it. Hi, friend. I'm very free. I will just talk in Portuguese because the words are not important here. Close your eyes, please. I'm going to touch you. And very respect. And as I count from 5 to 1, and you step one step ahead, 0.7, you can just let it come to you, this sense of chaotic mind that sometimes happens to us where our eyes and goes everywhere. And this is an anxiety. This is for a good reason. So you are not this, but this happens sometimes. And if you want, you can really see nation or whatever it comes. As a sevens, we sometimes tend to create things on our mind or anticipate it. This, and I don't know, maybe for the first time in your life, as part of you can start to analyze, anticipate, another part of you will just let be surprised. And before we do that, I want you to please connect a little bit to the suffering that we sevens have because of this. Sometimes people do not understand that we do suffer without direction. And also connect to a benefit from living a life with less that is more. Because less outside means a lot more inside ourselves. And we know the sensation of having gone to all the parties at the same time and going back home and feeling that we don't even remember where we were. Just our friends remember. We don't. There's a lot of sadness. But I also know what will happen when you start to live a life more and more in the heart. So when you're ready, 5, 4, 3, 2, just go into the 7 and step ahead and fill the head with this meditation. It's so good with the watch that energy down here. What happens to the leg becomes weaker. There's some force pulling this place. What happens here? Getting cold. So the first thing we do is that we're going to get all this energy that is around your head, which is kind of Las Vegas thing around it. And we're going to walk to a world silence, where you bring all this back in soul. I'm sure you can experience that. Where the mind becomes quiet. Hey. Please, the room feels. Just feel the change. Feel that our field is quiet. It's like we just stopped the clock and the time just suspended. That happens here with love. You can see that this is more quiet. It's pushed to the left, but the legs need still to be strong. But this energy that was around it was not being used. It was just throwing away, at least this here, back. And we can breathe. Because when we sevens stay a lot in quietness, I have to that our energy starts to go down, cross our throat, and starts to come. It takes time. It takes time. Sometimes it takes me hours to access a food. And I have to be alone because I'm afraid of showing. You can be aware of all the times, all the feelings of the This is a small child. This is a word that's big and scary. And on the count of 5 to 0, you can go back in time to a place, in time in your childhood that you need. Just to be 5, 4, 2, and still. Yes. It's okay. You're hot. that when we go back, supported by the silence, supported by the sensation that something is holding me, something is really protecting me, then I can change whatever I need to change in my heart and my mind, and start to grow the years in a more silent position, redesigning all the days and years. And starting to count to 5. You can change every day and every minute of your life, and just start to grow, but in a more silent place, changing and reprogramming. 1, 2, 3. Because whatever I was afraid of as a kid, just turning into a very supportive hand of God, very supportive sense of being directed by Him. Inner knowledge, 4, 5. And feel every muscle of your body as you grow from ages 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, until teenaging and adulthood. But make sure you only stand up when every muscle of your body understands that from now on your life is going to be lived in a supportive and quiet way. Only at this moment. So you may change or reprogram anything in order. Yeah, sometimes air is an issue.
deja brillar el sol, escondido en tu interior. Es tiempo ya es hora. Ábrete corazón y recuerda como el espíritu cura, como el amor sana, como el árbol florece y la vida perdura. Que para llegar a Dios hay que aprender a ser humano. Ábrete corazón, ábrete sentimiento, ábrete entendimiento, deja a un lado la razón y deja brillar el sol, escondido en tu interior.
And no matter where you go, and what you remember about yourself, you just can be very quiet and integrated. And let these changes go into the liquid of your spine and change every water molecule, every DNA, and takes it to your brain, distributes to all your muscles and cells, and also the second body, the third body, and more energetic bodies. Being sure that something very deep and very profound just was given to you. No matter where or how long you've been running from one place to another as if there was no direction, you can now sense very deeply in your heart what is the only thing that you would dedicate an entire existence. And this would fill your heart as you never felt before. And this images of clarity will start to come now, but they will still start to come to you in the following hours and days. No matter you awaken or it comes in a dream, what I know is in a few weeks you will be sensing a very different life. As if there were no more reason to go from one side to another, because in this very little life around people I love and something that I am useful for, I will find God in everything that I am. And of course, as a 7, I can be this, and I can be joy at the same time. And since I formed the way I'm going to present myself in a new identity in the world, I will bring you to joy.
Okay, so it's for Gary.
for me. When we shift or go into places this big, it's important that we set again the personality back, at least a bit, because otherwise it's like getting a castle and just destroying the walls, but you have to put the walls back, not in the same place. It can be a bigger castle, but it has to be a castle. And that's why that's a bit from the heart. there's a lot of hypnotic suggestions as we do the work. That means his unconscious mind and also the field will keep working for many days, sometimes months, as we throw in a lake that is very quiet, a small rock in the middle, and the waves will go just longer as we finish here. So we always leave the person to take the time it needs to integrate. If you do not have the time, you have to go and put the personality back, and there's a line of work that you do when we do it. Since it was a new place for me here, I didn't expect us to open this way, but it just happens all the time. Well, just one possibility, which I don't like to explain too much because it brings to cognitive issues, but since we are Enneagram teachers and learners, it's nice to know that as the energy was here in the 7, you cannot use this. What you do is alchemy. You don't throw energy away. Energy is not good or bad, depends on what you do with this. So as you contract it back in the 5, in the head, you have more available to you. Only after that, with this quiet here, this starts to go and you can start to access the heart. Why we are like 7s, we are like this? We do not want the energy to settle and get into the heart. Sometimes we put the throat in the middle. So as this starts to get into the heart and quiet, then I have the energy to go and find what is missing there. But without being a stress point and self-critic point. Then, since I'm quiet, I'm in the heart, I'm not going to judge myself. So the access, it's higher access to the one. And when I come here, it starts to come the earth, which I always find the tree here. It's and then 7 finally finds focus, finally finds a home, a place, a sense of one way, and many other things, but a sense of truth. Since he accesses a very higher point in the heart, where you were there, I moved him to the 4, not type 4 here. It's just archetypal access that we always do here in very ancient things in the heart, very deep. And then we access some things that would have to be with his mission in life and purpose. And then he was being pulled to the center. It's where you find, for 7s usually, you go out from this place where I do not know where to go, and suddenly, like the 2 or 3 meters above, it opens and you can see lots of images on what is your true mission. And usually when 7s access that, which was my case 14 years ago, sometimes it takes a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, but he always have something to do. I have some students here, Patricia was here, and I remember when, many years ago, she went here and see a lot of children, and that was not her work at that time. And now, many years after, she's working with kids in the end. So, but that we do not control, depends on the quality of the frequency and the works. He's done a lot of work, he's very permissive, he's not afraid. So this works in the field. So just to finish, as we want to learn, and everyone can learn to conduct this work. I didn't do this before. I didn't feel the fields. I didn't know what a field was. I was trying to see it. So you can learn. There is a methodology that you can start sensing the energy, sensing the fields, and then practicing the different qualities, and then practice and senses the different places with practice of body, grounding, Enneagram knowledge, and of course, if you have limitations on you, which means fear of losing the control, fear of being a channel, this psychological stuff, you have to work on it because they will be in front of you somewhere. So this work never ends on yourself, and that's a bit what I think finishing the time. That is just to know, if you want to know our school in Brazil, it's Illuminata.net. You can access in English or in Portuguese. It's been there, it's 13 levels of the Enneagram for a long time, and other things also. The Enneagram for Leaders book you can find on Amazon, Kindle, and also the app. And the app has 100,000 downloads in Portuguese. The English version is still small, but we are working on it, and also the video. That's a hi from my students, and they are with us. And my contacts.
You do the course in Portugal?
Sorry?
You do the course in Portugal? The training? Or?
No, I never did a course. I used to do trainings here 10 years ago, but for NLP trainings. Enneagram, I never did it. Since my older boy was born, he's 8, I stopped it. But now I'm back in the field again, so I think it's going to happen here and in other places.
This year?
You can also, if you want me to go somewhere, talk to me, or even if you want to get some friends and travel to Brazil and have a training in English or something, it could be done. Sometimes it's easier and even cheaper. But anyway, what I had as expectation is that would be useful. That is not something that you should believe. I'm not right or wrong. But what I had as an expectation is that some way to be useful for you, maybe, and also the message to remembering where the Enneagram came from. And of course the Enneagram is everything. It is the behaviors on a leader that can be useful. It is the energy that forms all of this. This all are levels of manifestation, and like Ken Wilber who likes to say, they are truth, but they are part of the truth, not the whole truth. And that's it. Thank you very much. I hope you have a